Hello guys, and welcome back to the Spiritual Tapes. And today I'm going to talk about, as we're finally closing up on this 10-part series, we're going to be talking about just how to make things better in your life if things are currently quite chaotic and there's no hope, or you feel like there is no hope. And if you're in one of those mindsets that there's no way out, and everything is just falling apart. Or perhaps even worse than that, you don't even realize that things are falling apart, and yet you are still continuing to let it happen. And you've somehow subconsciously realized this, but not actually done anything about it yet, which is quite a tough subject, because I think subconsciously we all know where we are at in our life at some level, and we know what we need to do to get to where we want to be, but unfortunately we sort of just let the days go by without taking any action. And I believe the solution to those things is actually quite simple, but it does actually take a little bit of willpower on the part of the individual. So today's going to be about that. I have no idea what the title will be, but I guess I'll figure that out in editing and uploading. So this is episode 9 of the Spiritual Tapes, and I'm your host, Christine Loveridge. And if you have been enjoying these mini podcasts, then please let me know. The best way you can let me know is by liking and subscribing and commenting and letting me know that you enjoyed it. So let's try and grapple with the subject of trying to make your life better. Now, I feel like it's something that everybody has to do on a daily basis in order to at least maintain the life that you already have. So let's say for you, life isn't that bad. It's pretty good. You've got money, you've got a shelter, you've got food, you've got relatively happy relationships with your family and perhaps with a spouse, perhaps with your children. But every day we fight to maintain that normality. So if you just let a few things slide during the day, it could be quite chaotic. So for example, you don't clean your house. Now what happens if you don't clean your house? Well, it's messy. That's the first thing. Secondly, your family members might start to resent you a little bit for not doing your part. Perhaps that's something. See, it's just something small that you have neglected to do, but it has actually caused quite a big ramification in the household energy, shall we say. So there's things that we must do every single day in order to maintain the life that we have. So there's a routine in that. You get up, you brush your teeth, you go to work, you come back, you make some dinner, or someone else makes some dinner, and perhaps you clean, or vice versa. Something happens. You're maintaining your household, you're going to work, you're making sure that everything is in order. So how do we make it better? How do we get from that to much better? Because we all have things that we are striving for, and I feel like if you're not striving for anything, you're probably not in a very happy place, because we do seem to need to have some kind of lofty goal that we can aspire to, because that's where happiness is. I mean, we hear it all the time. Happiness is in the journey, not the destination. And I really, really, really strongly believe that as well. We must have things that we are trying to work towards. I'm not saying they have to be like to earn $1 million, £1 million, or to have a mansion in Bali or whatever, They don't have to be that. I mean, for some people, it could be just writing a book. Or it could be, I would say, just writing a book. I mean, that's a huge mammoth task in itself, depending on the size. But there's obviously, there's aspirations there. I mean, someone's aspiration might be to fix up an old car that they bought. Or it could be to, have sort their garden out and make it all beautiful and have a proper nice, lots of lovely flower beds, perhaps even grow vegetables. But right now it's just flat grass out there. There's things that we must do in order to, there's journeys that we must take that will help us. And if you don't have some sort of destination, some sort of journey that you're on, then you're probably not in a happy place right now. So my first suggestion to you, if you are like that and if you don't have anything, to find something, right? To find something that is a little bit out of your comfort zone that you can strive towards. And when it comes to spirituality, that's a really good thing, because when you're striving towards something and you're feeling like you're accomplishing something, you have higher spirits, and that's all to do with spirituality. That's the whole point of spirituality, is to lift your spirits, to make you feel better, to give you hope for a better future. That is essentially what spirituality coincides with. There's definitely an underlying message in spirituality, and I believe, in my personal opinion, that that's what it is. It's to strive for things beyond your reach, but not so far beyond your reach that you can't get it and you feel depressed every day because you've got these grandiose goals that are way above your skill level. Now, I'm not saying you can't achieve things that are way above your skill level, but it's so much easier to go for little steps first. So let's say you want to write a book, right? So the first step probably will be in writing a book, would be actually to write maybe a short story, or it could be to write an article, or it could be just to write a paragraph. There's other smaller steps that you can do first in order to get to that grander goal. So it's definitely worth having grand goals as well as reachable goals, but don't just make the unreachable goal the first thing. So don't give yourself such a huge project that you have to start from the beginning. Make sure that you develop your skills that can later on help you with that bigger goal that you may have. But work towards smaller goals that are manageable, that are a little bit out of your comfort zone. And then once you've developed those skills and you've done that, then you can go for higher and bigger things and get to the massive, and slowly, gradually get yourself up to that point where you're able to write a book. So you can see how it kind of works, So recently I made a workbook, a coaching workbook for my coaching clients, the people that I'm mentoring. And this is a freebie that they get along with any coaching package they purchase from me. And if you want to do that as well, then you can go to www.christineloveridge.com/shop and you can talk to me personally about whatever issues you are facing, and I will do my best to help you map out what you should do to make your life better, or to get what it is that you're trying to get. So basically the workbook is a 30-day workbook that has exercises in it and little explanations for each day. And I'm basically going to read you some of the questions that I've laid out, actually all of the questions I've laid out in the last day of this 30 days. So I'm going to read them out to you. And basically what I want you to do is, while I am reading them out, maybe pause after I've read out a question and then write it down. So if you've got get yourself a pen and paper, pause me, get yourself a pen and paper, and just write out the answers to these questions. So this is the last day of my workbook. Now, actually, as well, if you would actually like this workbook and you think it would be a good standalone product, let me know, because I've been thinking about that, but I'm not sure. Because I'm not sure on the pricing, I might have to actually look and see what other people are charging for these kinds of workbooks, and then I'll probably make the medium sort of like price around that. See what the whole consensus is on pricing these kinds of products, because I'm not sure. Which is why I'm giving it away as a freebie if someone actually wants coaching from me. So these are the questions. So question number 1. There's 12 questions in all, and this is the first one. What makes me feel weak? What are the things that you do that make you feel weak? Perhaps they are certain thoughts. Perhaps there are certain actions or lack of actions that you do that make you feel weak. Perhaps, for example, for me, if I don't do what I know I need to do throughout the day, that makes me feel weak if I haven't done that. And I think I spoke about this experience a couple of videos back when it was the anniversary of, it may have actually been last week, the anniversary of my grandmother's passing. On that day, I was so paralyzed with grief that I wasn't able to do what I needed to do, and that made me feel weak. It made the day much more worse than it should have been. And I knew that, but I still didn't do anything, so there we go. I mean, I'm not perfect. Definitely not. So that's something that made me feel weak. That's an example, right? I suffered for the rest of the day because I didn't do what I needed to do. And it was already a tough day. It was already going to be a tough day, so I made it extremely much more harder on myself than I should have had it. But there we go. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, I suppose. Even though like I said, I kind of knew what I should have been doing. But there we go. Grief is a strange thing, I'm telling you. Okay. So the next question 2, what makes me feel strong? So what are the things that if you did, or the things you shouldn't do, how does that make you feel strong, right? So what are the things that make you feel strong? Perhaps working out makes you physically stronger. So if you lift weights, perhaps that will actually make you feel physically stronger. But what about mentally stronger as well? For me, mentally stronger is doing what I need to do every single day. Another thing that makes me personally feel strong is if I write a good article or I just write something. If I get a new understanding from something, if I learn something new, that makes me feel strong because I've now added to my sort of like repertoire of knowledge, right? So what makes you feel strong? Number 3, what things do I procrastinate on? So what are the things that you procrastinate? What are the things that you put off for another day and decide, future me will handle those details, when really you know that you should be doing it right now? And if you want sort of like a tip on what to do if you are dreadfully procrastinating on certain things. So let's say you're a student and you have an essay to write. Just do the essay for 15 minutes. Even put a timer on. Just do it. Commit yourself to do it for 15 minutes. And the likelihood of you going longer than 15 minutes is much more likely. So it's worth just doing it for 15 minutes because you'll probably do more of it. It's one of the things I found out when I was writing one of my books. I think even both of my ebooks actually that I made. I committed that I'll do half an hour of writing, and that usually spilled over to an hour to 2 hours sometimes. So it's worth just trying to do it for 15 minutes because it's more likely than not you're going to do more. So what are the things that you procrastinate on? Number 4, why do I procrastinate on these things? It's a good question. Makes you think. Why? Why do you procrastinate on these things? I remember the feeling, and I guess it's the same feeling that when I had to write essays at uni. One of the things that sometimes made me want to not do it until the last minute was just the amount of mental energy that you have to use when you're writing an essay. So sometimes it could just be taking the time to do it. Maybe that's why. Sometimes just taking the time to do it would be much more painful than actually doing it. That could be something. Perhaps it's just easier and more convenient to do something else. There's lots of things why people procrastinate on things. These are some things that are just popping up in my head that I've thought of myself. But they're different for everybody, so don't just take my word for it. You know why hopefully you know why you procrastinate on these things. 5, what am I not confronting and what am I turning a blind eye to? So this is something good if you're in a relationship. Are there some things that is happening in your relationship that you are turning a blind eye to? So for example, perhaps you've noticed that your partner is more irritable and you haven't spoken to them about it. You just keep on watching them as they get more and more irritable day after day, day after day. It's essentially of like brushing things under the carpet. This is something that I've noticed people do in the past. They don't talk to their partners about behavior that is toxic, and they'd rather just ignore it than face it. And I think it's important that we need to have these conversations with our family members. And it might not even be anything to do with your family member. It might be something else. It could be your taxes, for example. You might not be confronting your taxes. And this is different from procrastination, because procrastination is like, I'm thinking more of like the day-to-day things that you procrastinate on, like exercise, things that you should be doing every day, eating healthy, but instead you decide not to exercise and you get takeout. Those are things that you kind of leave. Oh, I'm going to start on Monday. You hear that all the time, especially in the weight loss world, and people that want to lose weight or they want to get better of their diet. They always say, I'll start on Monday, or I'll start after New Year's, or something like that. They leave it to a later date. But confronting something and turning a blind eye to something, what am I not confronting and turning a blind eye to? I think those ones are more serious things that can, well, of course your health is serious, but if you're brushing stuff under the carpet and you're ignoring the skeletons in your closet, this could be, I guess, attributed to someone who with anxiety, someone who just decides to stay in their house and never leave. You can see what happens with these kinds of people. The longer they stay away from society and they stay inside the house, the worse it gets. They just become more and more like that. And I've seen this firsthand with a family member that can barely leave the house and go out into the world where there's other people around. It's difficult. And the longer they do that, the worse it gets. So that's something that people turn a blind eye to. So that gives you sort of like the magnitude of that question, as opposed to I shouldn't eat a pizza tonight, and I'll stop eating pizzas on Monday. That's more of a procrastination thing. So a bit of a less heavy question, but one that is just as equally important, and that is, what are my good qualities? What parts of me do I enjoy, that I like, that I respect, that I'm glad that I have? So, for example, one of the qualities that I really like about myself is the fact that I have decided that my school education wasn't enough. I needed to educate myself on certain things, especially personal development, because I had horrible mental health issues about 5 or 6 years ago. And without personal development and me reading tons of books, watching loads of seminars, listening to audiobooks, if I didn't self-educate myself, I don't know where I'd be right now, to be honest. And it's kind of scary to think about, but I'm glad that I have the quality of the willingness to the willingness to realize that I don't have all the answers. The willingness to put aside as well that I probably won't ever have all the answers, but I'm going to try and find out as many as I can. And I'm open to new ideas as well. I like the fact that I'm open to new ideas, because I feel like if you have a certain frame of mind that can't be swayed, you're actually trapping yourself, in my opinion. But if you're optimistic to different points of views and to different ways of thinking and new ways of living, and you're not just stagnant, it's good to have that quality, I think. And I'm proud. I'm so thankful as well that I have that quality, because I wouldn't even like to know really what I would be like if I didn't have that. So number 7, a bit more of a darker question, literally. What are the darkest parts of myself? So what are the things that you don't really like about yourself that could be improved on? And I'm talking more here about like personality qualities, as well as, because there's not really a lot we could do about our appearance. So if you don't really like some things about your appearance, there's not really a lot you can do about that. I mean, obviously there's ways you can improve it, like exercising, but if you have a serious defect somewhere, there's not really much you can do about that. So I'm talking more about things about yourself where there's possibility of change. So now question number 8 is what can I do to challenge myself? So how can you get at what are the things that you can do that you can just stretch a little bit, get out of your comfort zone a little bit? What are those things that you can do? So perhaps this might be just simply when you're at the gym, or if you've got a home gym, just using heavier weights. That could be something to challenge yourself. Perhaps there's something curious about some element of your job that you've never done before, and you ask your supervisor or your boss if you can do it, if you can try it out. Just think of some ways that you can challenge yourself in ways that will greatly improve your life in some way. So let's say you're in a relationship, perhaps there's some part of the household duties that you could take more on. Perhaps let's say you always do the washing, but you never do the cooking. Maybe you can ask your partner, hey, can I try and do dinner tonight? Just doing those little things that are a little bit outside your comfort zone, but you're learning and you're growing in some way. Number 9, what things must I improve? We're talking about things that need improvement. So perhaps your finances need improving. Perhaps you need to be a bit more assertive and try and ask for a pay rise, or go for a job promotion, or in fact go and find a different job. That's something that you feel like that's something that can be improved upon, especially if your financial situation is a bit dismal. Perhaps there's a relationship in your family that you need to fix. Otherwise, if you don't try and fix it or improve it, there's going to be disastrous consequences. So an example of this for me was when it went wrong was when my grandparent died, and I felt like I could have done more while she was still alive. And because she's gone now, there's no way that I can improve that relationship because it's gone. So take that as a warning. The people in your life are not going to be around forever. Especially your older relatives like your parents and your grandparents. You need to improve those relationships now. There's no time. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So make sure that that could be one of the things that you want to improve. But there's other areas as well, perhaps that you do have a serious health condition and you realize that you're having too many takeaways, and that is not improving the situation. That's deteriorating you in some way. So perhaps you need to have a more nutritious diet. I don't know what it is for you, but I assume that in your life the things that you desperately need to improve on. There's always things that can be improved on, because the thing is, if you're focusing on one area in your life too much, so let's say you're focusing too much on your career, you can damn well bet that there's some part of your family life that is going downhill. And you have to think of life as kind of like this juggling match, right? You have to kind of think of life as juggling, right? You have all these different, juggling balls that you are throwing up in the air. You have to make sure that you give each one your undivided attention, because if you miss one ball, and it smashes, it could be gone. So you need to make sure that you have a good balance and that you're improving all the important areas of your life in some way, or at least maintaining it, because if you're maintaining it, at least it's not, gonna smash anytime soon. So yeah, just what things must I improve in my life? Question 10. What are the things I worry about before I go to sleep? Usually the things that you worry about before you go to sleep are the things that you need to take care of the most. Those are the things that you need to tackle straight away, pretty much. Now if you think about the past a lot before you go to sleep, which is something I do, what you need to understand is there are those areas of your life that you keep on thinking about that have happened previously. You haven't quite confronted them to the best of your ability, which is why you keep on thinking about them, because something hasn't been resolved. Now, it might be you just need to talk to whoever else was maybe perhaps in that memory about it. Or perhaps you just need to write about it, in a diary or something, and fully go into it and figure out what happened, what you learned, what was wrong, what was right, and perhaps that will help you feel a bit more calmer about it, or at least it won't, keep you awake at night. So think of the things that you worry about before you go to bed, and then do your best to tackle those things as quickly as possible, so you can stop worrying. Or at least you'll have different things to worry about. Perhaps you'll have nicer worries than the worst worries, I don't know. But at least a nicer worry is better than a horrible worry. So 11 is a follow-on question from that one, which is, what can I do to stop that worrying that is practical and can do now? Like I said, it could be calling someone up, having a conversation. It could be writing it out, writing as much as you can remember about that memory, and finding perhaps the lesson in it, because I feel like some people look back on horrible things that have happened to them in their past, and there's no meaning behind it. They can't find any sort of, it feels unjust, and you can't find any meaning behind it. You just feel like it was a meaningless thing. But I've said this before, if you look hard enough, you can find some sort of meaningful thing that happened to that changed your life in some way. And it might be just that, let's say something really, really horrible happened to you, and it's something that you think about a lot before you go to sleep, and you worry about it. Perhaps now you've donated a lot of money to a certain charity that is in a similar vein to what happened to you. So that's something. That's meaningful. You've done something. You've helped the situation, and perhaps that's what you need to do. Perhaps you're a victim of some kind of crime. Perhaps you need to bring awareness to it. Perhaps that's something practical you can do. Perhaps you need to donate money to a certain charity. Perhaps you want to help other people who have gone through that similar experience. That brings meaning to it. That will help. That will help the situation. At least that's what I think anyway. So the last question to answer would be, so the last question to answer, question 12, is, what can I do today to improve my life, even just slightly, and ease any suffering that I might be going through? So what can you do today to improve your life, even just slightly, that can ease your suffering? And I feel like a lot of us know what those things are. To us individually, of course, because everyone's different and everyone has their own problems. Or issues, shall we say. So you need to identify what you can do to make it better today. And if you answer all those questions, and you answer them to the best of your ability, and you more importantly, you act on them, it's gonna be a lot better for you. It's going to really help you, I think. At least I hope. At least that's my hope, that you will find some sort of practicality in it that you can use, because sometimes I worry that I give information out, but there's nothing really in it that is practical. I worry about that sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking at people to giving them advice on what they should do, but it's not practical enough. But I hope those questions are practical enough, and I hope it does raise your spirits, because essentially that's what I believe spirituality to be. And the best way that we can get things better is if we try to improve our lives in the best possible way, even if it's just slightly. Because slightly better is better than not better at all. So next week will be the last episode of this the podcasts, the spiritual tapes. I'll probably pick them up again in the future if I get some more positive feedback about them and everything. So yeah, I shall see you again next time. And if you've listened to this whole entire thing, comment down below with I'm not going to brush anything under the rug. That's a good one. So say that. I'm not going to brush anything under the rug if you've listened to this entire thing. Well done if you have. Alright, I shall talk to you again very soon, guys. See you later. Bye.